What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about Eve and her husband, Maximillion Cooper, and the new bundle of joy that very recently arrived in their family. But first, I want to give a congratulations to Eve on being a bed wench, marrying a cave beast, and birthing the white devil spawn. Eve, I'm ashamed of you. And during Black History Month. And I bet they purposely planned it like this too. She went from Rough Rider to Snow Rider. Yeah, we about to go in on you, Eve. You about to get that work today, Eve. I'm just joking, y'all. I'm trolling. I ain't got no beef or grievances with Eve and her being a part of Swirl World and Swirltopia. But I do want to speak on some things in relation to, Eve being a part of Swirltopia and also kind of related back to Black women in general as well. But for those of you who may not know, Eve, she had some difficulty conceiving a child. Apparently there were some fertility issues, so that prevented Eve and her husband from having a child for a while. I'm not sure what quite happened, but they were able to get the child that they wanted. So definitely congratulations on, that blessing. But I do think there's something about Eve being in an interracial marriage that really bothers Black people, at least some Black people, especially some Black men. Not all, but some. If it don't apply, let it fly. But I think to many people, Eve is considered to be basically a ghetto, ratchet, roundaway hood chick. Not saying that that's who she is or that's all she is, but I'm saying I think that's how people within the community, at least, and perhaps outside of the community, but in the community, view her. So because of that, I think that people counted her out when it came to having options, particularly Black men, counted her out in terms of the options that she has. And as well, probably didn't even think that she would explore other options outside of Black men. Because I have heard some people, or at least seen some comments in the comments section saying, they were kind of surprised to see Eve in, this type of relationship. But nevertheless, they're happy for her and happy that she, explored her options. And I know that phrase it's triggering for some people. I know that. Especially when it's applied to Black women. And really, I feel like that phrase is more so applied to Black women versus Black men, even though both groups explore their options. But I think the phrase is applied to Black women more because maybe people want to encourage Black women to explore all of their options, while on the other side, Black men, I'm not sure Black men really need encouragement when it comes to exploring their options. And by the way, it's a good thing. It's always a good thing to have options, to have other options. It's when you don't have options that you're in trouble. So with that being said, seeing someone like Eve in an interracial marriage and living abroad, in a foreign country, is very interesting for a lot of people. And a lot of people may have assumed a mutual disinterest when it came to her and her husband. Like people, particularly Black people, would assume that she wasn't interested in him. And Black people and perhaps other people may assume that he wasn't interested in her. Obviously, that's not true, but I think those assumptions are what people made. But nevertheless, kudos to Eve for stepping outside of her comfort zone and trying something new instead of waiting around and begging to be picked by black men. And as well, kudos to Serena Williams, Tamron Hall, Jodie Turner-Smith, and the other swirling uh, black female public figures out there. And I do feel like those women, if they had opted not to explore their options, I feel like they probably would be still waiting to be married. They might have a kid or two. Yeah, they might have a kid or two, but they probably wouldn't have the marriage and that family feeling and unit that they wanted to go along with the children. They could have just ended up being baby mamas, and the community would blame them for not choosing better. And there would be some truth in that, because it would be at least partially their fault because of the way that they went about choosing their partner. But, I do hear that interracial marriages between white men and black women are the most long lasting and long standing out of all the interracial unions. And when you think about it, it's like, of course, of course. When you really think about it, it's like, why wouldn't they last the longest? And I bring this up because some black men and some, counterproductive black male identified black women will try and place the blame solely on black women when black women's relationships with black men fail. So when black women have successful relationships outside of the community, it shows that black women are not the common denominator. It shows that black women are not solely the problem. So because of that and other reasons, it is important to point out black women being in successful interracial marriages. And of course, we can definitely highlight black women who are in successful intra-racial marriages as well. Because, don't think I'm, shaming black women who find love inside the community, which that would just be crazy here, right? Like, why would you shame a black woman for finding love within the community with a black man? But another thing that I do want to touch on right quick is Stevie J and Faith Evans. And as you may or may not know, Eve and Stevie J used to date at one point. But for whatever reason, Stevie J and Eve broke up. And Eve eventually ended up with her husband, and Stevie J eventually ended up with his wife, Faith Evans. And right now it's like, look what's going on with Stevie J and Faith Evans. But, people within the community don't really got much to say about that. But if this was like Eve and her husband in some situation like that, yes, the community will definitely be talking about that. But seeing Stevie J and Stevie J and Faith Evans in that relationship, like, that could have been Eve, And by the way, Faith Evans is a preference. And also, I think Stevie J may have even leaked like a sex tape of him and Eve to the public on purpose. But Eve and her husband were able to get past that situation. So, kudos to them for that. And of course, congratulations again to Eve for having her first child. I wonder if she wants more children. And you know, by the way, Eve did have a son. She has a biracial son, part black, part white. So she did not create someone who she supposedly is jealous of and who she supposedly dislikes and who she supposedly hates. Biracial women, right? In fact, I've never heard Eve mention or say anything disparaging about biracial women or even women who just happen to have a lighter skin tone. But I bring up that because sometimes people will use sort of like a fear mongering tactic against black women, particularly darker skinned black women who are perhaps entertaining the idea of expanding their options, exploring their options, dating interracially, etc., by saying that, you know, they're going to have a biracial daughter from their interracial union, and basically they're going to end up being envious, hateful toward their biracial daughter, disliking their biracial daughter, creating, perpetuating the problem they complain about, etc., right? Fear-mongering tactics that almost are always applied to black women, darker skinned black women in particular. And while these are interesting points and good points, what happens when these biracial girls like get in the community via black men? Then what happens? Because people aren't trying to really regulate that for some reason. Since people are so worried about, you know, the biracial girls and women, you know, being a problem for the darker skinned black women in the community, like, what are we going to do about the biracial girls coming from the other side of the swirl world? And the problem isn't necessarily that the biracial girls and women exist. Rather, the problem is that they're ushered into the community and placed on a pedestal above darker skinned black women. And this is done by black men and supported by black women. Not all, but enough. By the way, there are people in the community, both black men and black women, who have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo and keeping black women, especially darker skinned black women, in a stagnant position. And these people themselves are operating from a place of fear, because they may fear losing the collective support of black women who we know tend to be darker skinned. They may fear being alone in the community. They may fear their pedestal no longer having the value that it currently has, because people, particularly darker skinned black women, no longer care. And as well, some people fear that they're going to lose their work mules, quote unquote. Because, you know, whenever there's some work to be done, then all of a sudden everyone knows who to go to. They know the black woman who to go to for that. Like, you don't hear that, oh, we come in so many different shades and colors and varieties. Oh my God. You don't hear that when there's work to be done and they need a black woman to come through. You don't hear that. But I don't want to go on for too long. I just want to come through and just give my quick thoughts and opinions about this situation and just let you know what I think. But let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section below. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.